What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Lamont's Gym Custom Knives Show, the number 3 podcast. I have got to figure out a way to do my thumbnails. I gotta go to, what is it, YouTube Studio, and figure out how to do thumbnails. I did a podcast a couple of days ago, and I I went to Twitter and I looked at the podcast, and one of my teeth were brown. I was like, what the hell happened there? Don't know. But anyway, let's get into this edition. Topic I've been talking about for the past for the past 3-4 years, man. And I gotta talk about it again today. Weak men. I come across my share of guys on a daily basis. Whether it's the job, whether it's, at a gas station, whether it's at a store. And I've noticed the amount of weak men. And the crazy thing about it, this is not a color thing, not a race thing. A lot of people would say, oh, it's testosterone, look what they're doing with the food. A lot of people say, oh, it's the internet, it's the culture. They are feminists are feminizing men, and I do believe that. Matter of fact, I believe all of it. It could be what they putting in the food that's causing male testosterone to diminish. It could be all those things. But a man is still a man, and don't matter what you see on the internet, TV, or what they're putting in your food, your body is naturally going to reject what its purpose is. I'm a man. I eat the same food everybody else do. Even though I do harvest a lot of my natural grown foods, I'm in the dandelion now, and a lot of naturally what we consider weeds that's actually good for us. I'm into that now, and I harvest a ton of it. Matter of fact, tomorrow I'm gonna be harvesting probably the remaining that's in my yard, probably about 20 to 30 plants. But I eat the same thing on a normal basis: hamburgers, hot dogs, and steaks, and all this stuff. And what I'm trying to say is, I know everybody's body's not the same, but the body's gonna reject what's not meant for it. So you could say that, it's the food and all this other stuff. A man's still gonna be a man. And, past 5 to 10 years, man, you've seen this trans thing that's really one of the biggest problems. But the thing is, it's one of the biggest problems. But if you take 100 men, out of every 100 men, you probably gonna have one that's truly wants to fundamentally change his body, or because he'll never be a woman, but can fundamentally cut off his nuts and get fake breasts and all this stuff. One, and he's got a mental issue. Now you probably got 5 to 10 that's just feminine and probably gay. But the other, 89% or 88%, what's wrong with us? I had a theory, and this is why I'm talking about this. I had a dream, actually. I had watched Red Tails, the movie, about the Tuskegee Airmen, World War II. And I watched that movie, ate, and went on to bed. I had a dream, and for some reason, that dream carried me back over to World War One. And I'm thinking, these cats that fought in World War One was, for the most part, born in 1800s. I think World War One was fought in the early 1900s, and so to be 20 to 21 or however old them guys was, you had to pretty much be born in the 1800s. And I wasn't around. I don't remember meeting, other than my grandma. I don't think I've met, probably both my grandfathers probably was born in the 1800s. I know my grandmother was. But other than that, I ain't never met anybody that I know of that was born in the 1800s. I met plenty that was born in the early 1900s. And these were men. Mean men. Both white and black. And even though at the time as a kid, I'm like, these dudes mean. Damn, they were men. My dream carried me over to when my father was born, the 1930s. Now, my father was too young to fight in World War II because he would have been, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around in there. But he did fight in the Korean War. These were men. I met a bunch of them, a bunch of men, but old cats at church and in the neighborhood and the community that was born from 1920 to 1930. These were men. Then my dream carried me over to the Red Tails. Now these cats, for the most part, was born in 1920. Like I said earlier, these were men. And they said that's one of the greatest generations ever. If he was born anywhere between 1915 to 1930, you're part of one of the greatest generations ever. And I believe that. But the sad part about it, and this is where the story and my dream kind of changed course a little bit. It changed course for the simple fact that when the World War II was over, those soldiers and sailors came home. They got to fucking. And that's why that phrase, that term, baby boomers, exists, because they got the sad part about it, the real weak men, they the one who stayed home. Now you had some that, was physically unable to fight. You had some that stayed home that was just busters, weak. And of course they snuck in Sergeant Jody's house and tagged his wife and got her pregnant. So you had a lot of busters doing their thing. You had a lot of buster babies. But for the most part, the baby boomers is where I think this country took its turn. Because these baby boomers, born anywhere between 1945 to 1950 or 55. I think that was considered the baby boomers then, 45 to 55. Listen, my mother-in-law was born in 55. She just turned 70. But these cats, 75 and 80 years old, I see a lot of weak people, men and women. Matter of fact, go back 2 or 3 months and look at all these protests and who you see out there. You saw baby boomers, man. Hippies. The baby boomers were the hippies, because the war ended in the mid-40s. These cats was born. So by 65, these motherfuckers got long hair, smoking dope, and protesting the Vietnam War. Weak. Do your history, do your research. I just had a dream. And I took from that dream what is reality, that the baby boomer generation were some weak ass people. Now fast forward to today, and that the Vietnam War is pretty much where my dream ended, but fast forward some years, that's when I actually came into the world. And I saw with my own eyes in the 80s, 90s, the men in the 50s, 60s, and 70s then, in the 80s and 90s, these were men. But that bunch of baby boomers, That bunch of baby boomers. You can see it back then. How laws were changing, how criminals was looked at, sympathetically. Even though, when you had the crack epidemic, a lot of people got put in jail over that, in that dope game. But other than that, you just had people just being so sympathetic and so sensitive. And that's pretty much carried us where we are today. Weak people. We have a weak people. No men. Very few men. And I heard a guy said the other day, they was talking about the racial problem and the transgender problem. He said, listen, because you had an individual, some mayor, I think the mayor of Maryland, no, the governor of Maryland, was asked, if your son was gay or trans or whatever. He said, I'm gonna love him and I'm gonna support him. And the old boy said, hell no, if that's my son, I'll beat the hell out of him. And I was like, that's a man. Because if my son, Kenyon Stefan Richie, I love you, boy, but if you ain't came to me at 15, 16 talking about that shit, I'll beat the hell out of him. I would have whipped his damn ass and said, no, son, you're a man. And you go find you a beautiful woman and y'all raise family. That's exactly what he's doing now. Got 2 beautiful twin boys. Got a woman who's standing right by his side. Even when he was, had a little struggle, with his job and all that stuff, she stood right there with him. And she's still there today. So listen, my point is, weak men can't raise men. Weak men raises sissies. Weak men can't get out into the community and do positive things. Weak men are no better than women. They can't fight. They can't do anything. And that's why in my personal life, I don't allow a lot of people in my circle, because I don't want any weak people. I don't want any weak-minded people that's biblically unsound in my circle. Period, point blank. But anyway, I'm going to get up out of here. I appreciate you guys. I love you. I see you on the next one. But as always, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you guys stay blessed. And I'll see you next time.